Today's episode kicks off an exciting series for the podcast. It's all about relationship based marketing strategies. And today we're having Jenny Roth talk about how to build real relationships through email. But later this year, I hope to have several different experts on specific marketing platforms talk about how to be more relational and build real conversations and real connections using up to date new strategies for how to engage your audience on different type of platforms through your marketing, because I know something that a lot of service providers struggle with is how to market their business while also feeling true to their personality, true to themselves, and not feel salesy. And on different platforms, there are different obstacles to doing that as a service provider. But the bottom line is that as a service provider, people hire you because you're you, and building relationships is the number one thing that you should be thinking about, regardless of the type of platform you're active on and regardless of how you're marketing your business. Relationships and real connections with humans is the quickest way to build trust and to get people to shorten that cycle where they're not following you for 3 years before they hire you, right? They immediately trust you and you're able to build those relationships faster. So, if you're not yet subscribed to the Business Edit podcast, go ahead and click the follow button because you won't want to miss the episodes coming up on this series. And if you yourself are somebody who specializes in a specific platform and you have up to date strategies or unique tips for building relationships on that platform, I would love to hear your pitch on coming to the podcast. So feel free to reach out to me. My email is in the show notes, and I would love to hear from you. So if you're not yet subscribed to the Business Edit podcast, make sure you hit follow. And these episodes aren't going to air immediately in a row, but it's something that I'm going to incorporate into the podcast throughout this entire year. And by the end of the year, I hope to roll these podcast episodes into a very helpful playlist for you, regardless of the marketing platform that you're on. And if you are a specialist on a certain platform and you think that you have something that you can contribute to this series, I would love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's dive into how to build relationships through email. Welcome to the Business Edit podcast, a podcast about redefining productivity for the modern woman in business and finding ways to work smarter, not harder, in business and life. I'm your host, Jade Boyd, an MBA, business minimalist, and productivity coach. I help overwhelmed business owners simplify and scale their service-based businesses by doing less but better. I help my clients create business minimalist strategies and systems that allow them to pursue ambitious goals while working at a human pace. On this podcast, we'll explore simple ways to grow your business with a life-first approach. If you're ready to scale your business, bring order to chaos, ditch the busy work, and spend more time living your life than managing your life, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Business Edit podcast. Welcome back to the show, Jenny.
Hi, Jade. I'm so glad to be here. Any chance I get to sit down with you is a treat for me. So thank you for having
Same.
me.
Yes, the feeling is mutual. And I would say that you are probably one of the most common people mentioned in my coaching program. I feel like every other week it's like, well, Jenny says this, or like, I learned this from Jenny's podcast. And so it's super exciting to have you back on the podcast. And for anybody who hasn't met you yet, I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit more about what you do.
Oh, sure, of course. Thank you for that. I needed that boost today. Thank you for that. It's so kind. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jenny Roth. I am a copywriter. I've been doing this full time for I think going on 5 years now, but before that I did it really part time because I had 3 girls who were really small and home with me all the time. And they're now grown and in middle school and high school and all those things. And so Monday through Thursday, we have a 4-day school week in my small town here in South Dakota. When they're in school, I just kind of built this copywriting business from my home office here. I serve female founders primarily. I really love working with like money coaches, business coaches, health coaches, like women who are in this space doing incredible work to build wealth for their own lives and also lifting other women up with their work in the process. So that's really what I love to do. And I do that through sales page copy, full launch, service, the sales page and the email, website copy, and then just like kind of ongoing support through email, ongoing email support, or if you have lots of sales pages, lots of things going on in your business, we can come in and partner with you for 3 to 6 months to write all the things too. So yeah, I guess that's me in a nutshell.
And I am so excited to have you because I feel like anybody who joins your email list knows that you're an expert at this, just creating copy that is so relational and feels so personal and
Mhm.
goes beyond just like words that sell. There's something different about it. And so when I thought about kicking off this series, you were definitely the first person who I wanted to invite because so many business owners do struggle with selling without feeling salesy, finding the right words to say, even if they're really confident and love what they do and just want to like shake people and be like, you need this. It's
Yeah.
hard for them to come up with the right words. And so I would love for you to share just in general, how can we create email marketing that does feel more fun and relational, but then it also has to sell, right? Like it's not a diary.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's like the $1,000,000 question. I think everyone's wondering, like, how do I build this email list? And how do I sell to this email list and all of these things? So, I mean, we can break it down. I mean, I think the first part to that question is like, you said, like, how do I sell without being salesy? Right. And like, what do I even say? Like, I love my offer. I love the people I work with. A lot of my clients too, like, they have podcasts and like, they're on Instagram, like lives and reels, and they're so great at what they do in video and speaking. And then for some reason, when we get to like our email list, it's like this wall comes up, right? Because we feel like it has to be so good. We have to make, we all know the open rates and we all know the click rates that we're supposed to make to be good. And so it's like it almost blocks us from doing anything because we sit down and we're like, okay, now I'm in this like email box and I have to do this right and perfectly or else, like
Hmm.
and honestly what has helped me and I have a small program too called Email Insiders where we focus on like email marketing every week. But like what has helped me and what members and I work on in there is like first of all, when you go down to sit down to write an email, like the mindset of it is so like email is a mental game. It totally is. Probably everything in life. But like, so when I sit down to write emails, I write emails for a living and I get flooded with like, are you really going to talk about that? Isn't that offer price a little too high? What if everyone unsubscribes? What are people gonna think about that? I mean, it's so normal. So I just wanna, like, normalize that first of all, and then things that help me kind of overcome that and just being able to write, like, how I wanna write are I I pretend that I'm writing to one person. Like, I think of, like, my best client, the person that I would write for a million times over or work with a million times over, who is she? And I just start writing and I give myself permission to, like, just write to her. And I even tell myself, like, you don't even have to send this email. Just write it and see what happens? So getting into that headspace of like, there's at least writing to that one person that you want to serve and telling yourself, like, hey, my offer, like clapping loud for your offer, like, my offer is going to help at least one person reading this and I'm writing to them and really putting yourself into that headspace. I know it's not like writing strategy per se, but it makes all of the difference. And just giving yourself permission to write and you can go back and edit it later?
So when it comes to like even topics to talk about, if somebody is talking to that one person, they know who their ideal client is, how can they tweak, even if they have an existing email marketing strategy, how can
Yeah.
they tweak that to be a little bit more relational and maybe create a little bit more engagement? Because I do feel like email does have that rap as being like the marketing channel that's very one sided, that you just blast out these emails, but there's not a lot of engagement. So how do you flip the script on that?
Yeah, I love it. So, some things that you can do, and this is such a timely question. I hear from people all the time, like, my goals for this year are not just to make my email list like a place where I feel like I have to sell, but I really want to build like relationship and like community within my email list. So, one way you can do that, and I've been testing this out for a couple months in my business now, and I really like it, is that you can have a newsletter that is like exclusive to like your ideal audience, right? So like it's easy to use examples from my own business, so I'll just do it. So, like, mine is called "If I Was Your Copywriter," and it's a weekly newsletter that goes out, and it's full of like quick wins, tips to help you write the best copy for your business. And I create like content that just goes out to that email list, and people who join that newsletter. I send it to the whole list, but you can opt in to join my list just to get this newsletter, right? And so, in doing that, I really feel it's helped me treat my email list more like community because I'm like, I have this group of people and I'm going to send something just to them and I want it to be really good. And it makes me kind of think about that audience and what I can do to serve them and what they need from me. So having that like exclusive newsletter is one way that I've been able to build more community in my email list. I'm trying to think of other ways. Other ways would be like asking questions, inviting your audience to get on your calendar. We have one template that members that I work with use. It's like the monthly coffee chat email. So at the top of the month, You can open up your calendar for like a limited number of like coffee chats or free discovery calls for 30 minutes or whatever that looks like for you. It's kind of like opening up your calendar for just your email list and make it limited. Like you don't want to like spend your whole month on coffee chats. And I'm not suggesting that you do that, but just something like that that you can give them exclusive time on your calendar would be kind of another sweet way that I've been testing with building relationships that way.
I am a big fan of the coffee chat email. And actually, it brings up something that I was just talking about on the podcast in January, a few episodes ago. Having coffee chats with people on my email list made me realize that the majority of my audience are like planner obsessed, organized people who want to be even more organized. When my theory was I'm going to help the unorganized people who don't like this stuff do it well. And that was like the first inkling that I had of like, oh, all these people just want coffee chats to like chat about planners and show me their apps and stuff. And it's a trend that I've noticed going forward. But I think there's so much value in getting to know the people that follow you on no matter what platform it is, because I think we all make assumptions about who we're serving or who's opted into our list because we've designed this perfect freebie that's going to attract this type of person, right? But I am constantly surprised by the conversations that I've had with coffee chats, and they're a lot of fun, honestly.
Yeah, that's so awesome, Jade. And that's like market research 2.0. Like, honestly, because when you know who's on your email list, then you can create content and offers like for them and really speak
Mhm.
to them. That's so cool. Another thing you can do, I've seen people do is like open up their calendar, like, hey, it's February. This is where you can find me this month and share like where you're speaking, where you're gonna be. I mean, your main followers, that's just such a like a kind service to like show them where they can keep up with you this month. Yeah, but I love that idea of the coffee chat. And I've seen people, I've tested this too, taking it even one step further of like making like a low ticket something just for your email list, like a $49 audit. Like you could do a business audit, right? Or a copy audit on their website and just I make them just for my email list and I just open a exclusive amount. And like you said, that way I can really help people on my list who maybe can't work with me on like higher ticket item. And also I can see who's on my list and like, who are they ideal clients? Are they ready for this offer?
Mhm.
Maybe not. You can just really know people. It's really cool.
I love that you talk about offering it only to your email list and talking
Yeah.
about your email list as your community, like your
Yeah.
insiders. And in our last conversation, you talked about email lists as being like the after party, where Instagram is like the big party, it's exciting, but the after party is like your real friends who you want to hang out with. And I would love to know your thoughts. Obviously, repurposing content is a huge thing, and you have a podcast and an email list and are on
Mhm.
Instagram as well. So, how do you think about content creation when it comes to serving your email list well and giving them exclusive content, but also doing it in a way that you can repurpose sometimes? What does that look like for you?
Honestly, it's something that I'm still really like constantly evolving and figuring out for myself. I think I change this like every 3 months. So anyone listening, if you feel like this is constantly evolving for you, I think it really is. And for a lot of clients that I write for, it's constantly evolving for them too. And I think like what I've kind of landed on and what I think is kind of like timeless and can really work is like, first of all, what works for you, right? So, like, you have to know your capacity and things like that. But I think if you can commit to a weekly long form piece of content that you own, right? So that's a podcast, a blog, YouTube. I don't know if you own your YouTube. I don't know. But like something like that that can live on your website, right? That can live out there and that's not owned, I guess, by like a social media platform per se. If you can commit to like one like really good like leadership thought piece of content once a week, you have that cool. So for me, that can be broken down into probably two or three social media, captions at least. If like say you have a podcast episode of like three tips for this, there's that each one of those tips could be a social post. So I really like to repurpose that. You can repurpose it into an email. And then what I've layered onto that is like this exclusive kind of newsletter content. And if that feels like too much, if you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm creating too much, like another way I've approached it is like, could I give my newsletter the content first, right? Could like
Mm.
whatever my topic is, could I give it to my newsletter first and then it comes out on my podcast next week? Like make them your hero content and then repurpose it everywhere else. So you could kind of start with your email and go that way. I don't want people to like feel pressure that they have to create more, more, more content. So if that feels like a lot, yeah, I would start with your email and see if you can give it to them first and then disperse it out, or just have your long form piece of content. And when people get on your list, treat them really special, like Jade and I are talking about, right? Like the coffee chats, Maybe once a month you give them exclusive content if it's not once a week, opening up your calendar to them. I know another coach who does like Q&As or like live coaching calls, like send me your questions and I will, answer them to the whole list. So there's lots of like ways you can help nurture people once they get on the list too.
I love that.
Yeah.
And if someone is wondering, I think there's a lot of connotation. I won't say negative connotation, but I think
Yeah.
when we hear the word newsletter,
Mm,
something comes to mind and it's not
yeah.
always the best thing. And so I would love to know if somebody's wondering what to send as their newsletter, can you give us some ideas or even a place to start when we're deciding what could we send out every week?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that helps me with the newsletter thing too is I think of like newsletters what I send when I'm not like actively promoting something. So
Mm,
I kind of take my calendar and I'm like, okay, once a quarter, I actively want to have a campaign where I'm like selling an offer. Even if it's evergreen, I usually have 10 to 14 days once a quarter where I'm like promoting that hard, trying to fill the calendar. And in between there, when I'm like, yeah, sure, I have evergreen offers that are open and I can talk about those, but it's not like a launch. It's not like a promo. So in between there, I'm sending like, in my mind, that's like a newsletter. That's like a nurture, get to know me, see what I have out there, join a wait list kind of thing. And so what you can send in that newsletter when you're not actively launching, I mean, I have like a million ideas, but again, going back to that like exclusive, like what is my newsletter? Like theme it. Like name
mhm.
your newsletter, what's it about and who's it for? And the other great thing I love about that is like you will always like stay really laser focused on who you're writing for and what your newsletter is about. So you know that people are joining and that you're serving them with the content that they signed up for. So have that themed newsletter. Other things you could send would be like what you're working on, client case studies. I like to send at end of the week when I can win and learn. I just update my list like here's what something that went really well for me this week and here's something I messed up and totally learned this week as a business owner. I love sending that one out. I don't know. There's probably other ideas.
So you kind of have like a monthly cadence about on building this relationship-based email marketing strategy, and I would love to know, like, how often do you suggest sending these emails, and maybe what are some other regular emails that we should think about sending if we do want to create more relationships with our list and not have it be a one-sided thing?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So again, I if I was going to like make recommendations for someone, I always say like start with that weekly newsletter, right? And so and again, people like we talked about can get caught up in like what do I put in it, like theme it, know who it's for. Cause like a huge part, I think a lot of the questions on email marketing stem from like, I don't know what to say to my list. And but if you're like really clear on like why they're joining, you kind of know the purpose of the list for them and you know it for you and you can kind of stay
Mhm.
focused. So have that newsletter. And then once you have that going and that feels really, really good, you could maybe add in like a if you have a podcast or a blog or a YouTube, then could you add in another email every week that like leads to that content, right? So, excuse me. So you have your weekly newsletter. That's feeling good. Could you add in another email that really highlights your YouTube, your podcast, your blog, just to get more eyes there and really promote that, right? And if that's feeling really good, then you can kind of take the things that we are talking about here and layer in other things, right? So at the top of the month, could you also layer in the coffee chat or the low ticket offer or here's my calendar, right? Twice a month, could you layer in the here's my weekly win and learn like that I learned this week? Could you layer that in? So just kind of thinking like that. I think starting with the base of like that themed newsletter, adding in traffic to your main piece of content of the week if you have something like that out there, and then layering in like all the other relationship based kind of strategies that we talked about today. I think case studies is another one. What you're working on would be another one to layer in there. Layer them in when you can, right?
I love how you talk about it in layers because if you're going from 0 to 100, it's obviously a huge shift to start creating that
Yeah.
amount of content every single month. But I love how you broke it down into like, okay, stage 1, just work on being consistent every week. Stage 2, layer
Yeah.
in this if it feels good. And I think we kind of skipped over this, but this is something we talked about last time you were on the show. Building your email list and like inviting these people into your community and building real relationships with them. This is something I talk about all the time with business owners who are just like, I want to get off social media. How do I do that? Like, well, if your whole audience is only on social media, then it's hard, right? You have to move your audience somewhere else. And so when we're talking about how much work it is to build this email list, it's
Wow.
so incredibly valuable too. Like even talking about conversion rates on social media versus Instagram or social media versus
Yeah.
email. And I would love for you to speak a little bit about like what your email list has meant for your own business and kind of the power that you've seen email lists play in the roles of your clients too.
Wow. Yeah, so everyone listening to this, I think there's definitely like a wave or like some kind of trend right now about like social media optional or getting off social media. And I've always kind of felt like I don't really know about that. Like, I feel like when people tell me, like, they hate social media or they don't wanna be on social media, for me, I sometimes would, like, challenge you to ask yourself, like, what's really going on there? Like, is it you're not sure about your offer? Is it, like, you don't feel comfortable selling? Is it that you don't feel like you feel like you're working really hard for little return? What's really going on there? I've never really been like, email is better than social or like vice versa because I really feel and what I've seen work for my clients and in my own business is like it's not so much the marketing platform that you choose, it's like your energy in it. Like, are you all in
Mm,
on it or not? Like, I think if you are like love Instagram and you love reels and you love creating videos and like building community over there, like you cannot go wrong. Like you will be fine. And so I never want people who like love social media and love marketing over there to feel like, "Well, I've done it all wrong. Like, I'm on social media, I should be on email." I do not believe that to be true at all. For me, I like email because, I mean, I'm a writer, and it's more comfortable and easy and low lift for me to write something than to film B-roll and
yep.
find music and put on. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old, like, that's my mindset, my generation, I guess. And so, for me, I love email because it's easier for me to say what I wanna say through writing. I have more creative freedom, and I also feel like because there's no word count, there's no I don't have to film myself, and also there's more freedom in it. It's like a private community. I'm not blasting something that anyone can find scrolling. I'm really feel like I'm just talking to people who have opted in, and I feel like, I kind of know them a little bit better, and so email for my business, I do email only launches. I book out my copywriting services through launching to my email list without saying a word about it on Instagram, right? I fill my membership program just through my email list with like maybe talking about it on stories once or twice. I have a lot of clients who I think the main win they get is they can use Instagram to be fun. Like, they're like, "I can show up on Instagram and it's just fun because I know I have this emails going out in the background doing a lot of work for me." And that's like a huge relief to them when they're busy. They don't feel like I have to sell on Instagram or my sales are gonna dip. So yeah, I don't know. That was long-winded. Does that answer what?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you differentiated. Like, we're talking to the person who truly does not want to be on social media. And if you love social media, that's great. Like, you should use it. But I do think that a lot of people are leaning towards, at least I've noticed the same trend that you have, leaning
Mhm.
towards not wanting to create content on social media or feeling like their strengths are more aligned to being behind the scenes. I'm thinking of a few service providers that I work with who like, I don't want to show my face. I just want to be behind the scenes, but still, be a real person and build those relationships. And social media is obviously social and it can be easier to build relationships on that type of platform, or at least it's more common and the platform is built specifically for that versus something like email where you do have to be a little bit more intentional if you want people on the other side of the screen to actually hit reply. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not for most people, I don't reply to their emails. Like, it's just not something that we're trained to do versus social media. When I see somebody's post, like I am trained to like click like or comment.
Exactly. I think social media too, it's a really great place for people to get to know you. And then I think too, almost as buyers, let me know if you agree, but like as a buyer, if I join someone's email list or a consumer, I know that I'm gonna get sold to some right? Like I expect
Mhm.
them to pitch me something. Like I joined your email, like I know you're gonna tell me about your offer. And so I kind of like that about email too. It's almost like people sign up for your list, they know like, this is your list where you promote your offers, right? And so I kind of feel like it gives me some kind of like permission or something to be like, okay, people are raising their hands. They want to hear about what I have to say. Like, let's go. And so I kind of like that about email too, that there is kind of that current of like, you join a list, you're probably going to learn more about working with somebody, and it kind of gives you that permission to go there.
I love that. And
Yeah.
talking about like growing your list, and for it being like a good place to sell if your audience on social media is just skipping past all of your stories about your offers. What are some of your favorite ways? There's so many strategies to grow an email list, but what are some of your favorite ways to make it more relational or to grow it fast? If you've
Yeah.
seen any things that are working really well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is another question that I get all the time. And so for me, the fastest ways to grow my email list have been to host my own events. So last fall, I think it was in the fall. Yeah, I hosted a micro audio summit and I grew my email list by like 400 people. And so when you host your own event, so, a summit, bundle, collab, something like that, that for me has been what has grown my email list the fastest. That doesn't have to mean you have to host like a huge thing. I invited like 10 people, I think, and they each answered one question. It was super low lift. I already have a podcast editor. It could also be like doing a lead magnet swap, right? So following somebody or reaching out to someone you follow on Instagram who you love their work, you think they're similar to what you do, you know they have the same audience, like reaching out to them and being like, "Hey, I love what you do. I think we can help each other. Do you want to collaborate with me like on a more one-on-one style versus being a part of like this huge summit or bundle with hundreds of faces?" That more personal collab has helped me, a lot, and then also joining events, but they have to be like summits, bundles, collabs that way, but for me, they have to be very versus quantity, it's quality. Like, they
Mm,
have to be super aligned. I will often join, like, the paid spot on those bundles, like, usually you can pay, like, $200 or something to get, like, your own email sent out just about you or be at the top of the page so that it's actually worth it because, yeah, you can really get lost in the sea of hundreds of things, and then you also have to
mhm,
promote this thing to your audience, so it has to be good. So taking the time to be really careful, it's not about more of those, it's about maybe choosing, like, one quality one every quarter could, like, really grow your email list versus joining a bunch that don't align. And then, of
mhm.
course, there's always meta ads, which I'm not an expert on, but right now I do run ads. I just spend like $5 a day for 2 or 3 weeks out of the month, and that's also a great way to grow your email list. Yeah.
I love it. So, one question we've been ending the show on recently is what's one thing you think business owners can stop doing?
Oh my goodness. I think one thing that business owners can stop doing is thinking that they are not good enough or ready enough to do whatever the big thing is that they want to do right now. I just was writing a sales page this morning and to help me do that. I looked back at a page I wrote like 3 years ago and I was like, oh, that page is going to be so terrible. Oh, I cringed to go back. And I went back and I read it and I was like, that was really good, and the whole time I wrote that and the years since, I beat myself up thinking I wasn't good enough and maybe I charged too much for that, and so that was just an epiphany I had today of like, "Tina, you already been good enough this whole time. You're already ready this whole time." Like, the only thing thinking you're not is you, so I think that we could all stop doing that, especially me. I do that all the time, so
I love that. I do that too, specifically with podcasts. And I will do a guest interview and then be like, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for them. I did a horrible job. And then I'll listen back to it and be like, actually, I sound pretty good. I don't
yeah,
know what that is.
I know, we need to stop. We need to remind each other because your podcast is literally the best, so yeah, we should all just stop doing that.
Oh, thank you. Well, where can people find you after the show?
Yeah, thank you, Jade. So people can find me. My website is jennyrothcopywriting.com. That's my Instagram handle is Jenny Roth Copywriting. And then I have a podcast as well, the email marketing podcast. So yeah.
And I have to highly recommend Jenny's membership, Email Insiders, which we'll definitely link in the show notes. But I think I was one of the first people to join early enough that you had to send me like a manual Dubsado invoice before you had a fancy like membership set up. And it has been so helpful for anybody who wants to be more consistent with email marketing. Your templates are just golden, like the coffee chat template. There's so many things like that that I have learned just from being a part of your membership and have made like a big difference in my business. So thank you for creating it. And we'll definitely link that in the show notes too.
I appreciate you saying that and joining so early. And I think I have a free resource if anyone wants to try it out for a month, like see what it's like. We can leave that in the show notes too, because I know you can hear the word template and be like, oh, a template. But I did break out 6 of them so you can try them and see and then know if it's for you. So thank you for that.
Perfect. So for anybody listening, make sure you head to the show notes and grab that link because this is just an amazing resource and an amazing membership. And if, again, you're not yet subscribed to the Business Edit podcast, go ahead and hit subscribe because this is the first in a long series, I'm hoping, of relationship based marketing strategies to help you fill your services without feeling salesy. So, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Edit podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you take a screenshot and share it on Instagram, tagging me at jadeboyd.co. I'm on a mission to empower a new generation of women to become the types of wives, moms, and business owners that they've always wanted to be. Because empowered women change their families and communities for the better, and this is how we'll change the world. Sharing your takeaways from this episode on Instagram will help more women in business discover helpful episodes and level up in life and business each week. Don't forget to check out the show notes for the tools and resources mentioned in today's episode, because good ideas don't grow businesses. Action does. I'll see you next time on the Business Edit podcast.